Well, first of all, Commissioner Sheirer, let me agree with you. There is no way that we can thank both those who gave their lives and the thousands of others who rallied to the cause on the 11th, who, as all three of you have said, saved so many people that otherwise might have perished on that day. And so to all of you and to all who you know and to everyone who's involved with it, and I do feel an enormous debt of gratitude and thanks. And I also agree, Commissioner Von Essen, that we ought to try to, our work ought to be tried to put in the context of 9/11, which is why we tried to recreate at least some of what happened on that day. And to you as well, Commissioner Kerik, who I'd like to begin with, I do believe your desire to make certain that we provide the resources, I think you said the ammunition to fight the war, which I presume means the resources altogether. And I'll just say at the outset, one of the concerns that I've got is that I see that we're not doing that. I mean, for example, we all know on that day that in a horribly tragic and perverse way, as a consequence of there not being a lot of live casualties, our hospitals weren't overtaxed. And the American Hospital Association, the GAO, is saying today that we're nowhere near close to being able to fight a biological war, deal with the aftermath of a biological attack. Not even close. And, you know, so there's evidence, and I could cite others, I'm sure you could as well, where we're talking, but we're just not, we're not ponying up the resources necessary to get the job done. We thump to the wall and say, well, we can't do that, and maybe we'll get lucky and they won't attack us again, which is, I think, what got us in many ways in trouble before. Let me ask you, Commissioner Kerik, in your, I guess at page 3, you talk about the city through OEM had coordinated plans for many types of emergencies, and those plans are tested frequently. On the drills and exercise, you talked about chem bio, mass transit, against the mass transit system, actual emergencies like blackouts, building collapses, storms, plane crashes. Noticeably absent on this list is any kind of tabletop exercise dealing with the potential of Al-Qaeda attacking New York City one more time. Is that, did you do scenario analysis of what Al-Qaeda might do in New York City?
I think the tabletop exercise with regard to a biochemical attack may not have been dealt with solely with regard to Al-Qaeda, but it was with regard to a terrorist attack, whether it's Al-Qaeda or Ansar al-Islam or some terrorist group by a different name. And they were, you know, in all of the other things that we prepared and practiced for, we're in the same vein, the same mindset.
When you're talking about a plane crash, you're talking about a plane crash in the city itself? Did you prepare for them? I mean, certainly with the buildings that are 1,350 feet high with Newark and LaGuardia and Kennedy and commercial aviation in the area, that must have been on the list of things, possible tabletop scenarios that you evaluated.
We did plan for and do tabletops and drills for plane crashes, and I want to say, because I heard earlier some of the testimony, when it comes to crisis and comes to preparation and planning, I'd just like to take a moment to explain to the Commission, unfortunately, how well we did this, because 2 months from the day that the towers were attacked, Flight 587 dropped out of the sky over Queens, dropped in the middle of a community. It was the second largest airplane crash in U.S. history. And unfortunately, we had gotten so good at doing our job, within 24 hours from the minute that that plane hit the ground, we had the community cleaned up, we had the bodies removed, we had the gas on, we had the electric on, we had the streets open, the water was on, and minus the devastation, minus the devastation and destruction and the death that it caused, minus that, everything was back to normal within a period of 24 hours, unlike anywhere else in this country.
But did the feds come to you either through the FBI, CIA, and the Joint Task Force that were being put together after the 7th of August, 1998, or after the 12th of October, 2000? In other words, after East African embassy bombings on the Cole, and say Al-Qaeda is in the United States of America? They obviously have tremendous and very sophisticated capability, far beyond what they demonstrated in February 1993, and we must begin to do some scenario analysis to protect the people of New York City. Did that ever happen?
I can't say that they volunteered or requested us to do scenario analysis, but what I can say, and I have said this consistently, I really personally I didn't need anybody to come to me and tell me that Al-Qaeda was here. If you look at the interviews by bin Laden in 97 or 96, he said he was coming. He said he was going to send people. He said he despised this country. And for those of you that do not know, I lived in Saudi Arabia from 1978 to 1980. I lived in Saudi Arabia from 1982 to 1984. I heard a lot of the same rhetoric from bin Laden that I heard and witnessed in Saudi Arabia. So I understood the mentality. I understood his threat. I also had a very positive relationship and a good relationship with John O'Neill, who I consider one of the greatest investigators in U.S. history when it comes to Al-Qaeda or when it comes to the radical holy war Muslims that want to devastate this country. Well, and in the last few weeks, or last few months, I should say, as this commission has been ongoing, I personally, trying to sort of sort it out myself, I reached out to people like Murray Weiss that wrote the book about John O'Neill. I reached out to other people that knew John even better than I did. And I said, was there ever a time, maybe I missed something, maybe I didn't get it, was there ever a time that John O'Neill said that they would come with planes? Did I not hear it? Was there something I missed? And it was never said.
But on the list of things that you indicate you do tabletop exercises are the possibility that a commercial airliner, undirected by Al-Qaeda, could crash accidentally into a building in New York City. Is that not correct? Is that did I get that correct in this paragraph? You talk about plane crashes. Do I presume correctly that plane crashes into buildings in New York City were among the things you did scenario analysis of, whether or not you're prepared for it?
We had a functional drill of a plane crash at Kennedy. We did not have a tabletop of a plane crash into a building. A plane crash into a building would be handled basically as a high-rise fire, which it would have caused. We received no information from anyone that I was aware of.
No, but I mean, just the only information you need is to get a lot of planes taken off from LaGuardia and a lot of planes taken off from Kennedy and a lot of planes taken off from Newark. Were among the things that you did as you did possible problems in New York City, say one of these planes could crash into one of these 1,350 feet planes, because a lot of us when the first plane hit thought it was an accident. And I presume that you look at a 1,350-foot building and say, oh my God, maybe a plane someday will hit it. And I wonder if did you do scenario analysis
we did not
analyze, is your communication system going to be capable of handling the job? Do you have a good evacuation system in place? The sorts of things that you've all
They relate very closely. A plane crash into a high-rise building would be ultimately a high-rise fire. And all the agencies drilled, both functionally and tabletops and functional drills on high-rise incidents. It was part of our all hazards plan, but whether we did specific tabletop incidents on a plane into a high-rise building, no, we did not. I just want to go back a little bit on terrorism. In May of 2001, we did a tabletop exercise called Red X. Red X was a attack of bubonic plague in the city, a terrorist incident. It was conducted at OEM with about 70 different entities, agencies, and locales from the entire metropolitan area. 5 minutes into that drill, everybody forgot it was a drill. It became so intense. And as part of that drill, we quarantined Manhattan because we did not have enough information as to what we were dealing with. That drill, the second part of that drill, was scheduled for September 12th on Pier 92. And that was the point of dispensing for the medications in a biological attack.
You heard? I'm sorry.
Both those drills served as the basis for how we responded to the anthrax attacks in October of 2001. And we all had thought that the next area that we would be attacked would not be a conventional bomb. It would be chemical biological warfare, and we were really focused on preparing for that.
Rich, help me on this one. I mean, I've been living in the city for a little over 3 years, and one of the things I know is it's hard to figure out where everything is because the buildings are awfully tall. I've stopped looking up and rubbernecking all the time.
Right.
But, and we heard Joe Morris earlier, and we heard other people as well talk about how they could see what was happening as long as they were watching television. But the minute they got down to the World Trade Center site, they didn't have the eyes to be able to tell what was going on. And I'm wondering if you think as a consequence of that, the city shouldn't have UAVs or some sort of eyes in the skies that give us the capability of doing that. And I wonder if in your sort of post-mortem analysis you haven't said maybe that's something that we should have done after 1993.
I think that what we need to take a look at on the technology side is the communications issue. Critical issue has been not from 9/11, for decades. Public safety communications, the lack of spectrum for them, the ability, we fought for years, even when I was in the fire department, to get additional radio frequencies. There's much competition, as you know, for the limited spectrum space. Hopefully there'll be a change in that. Public safety needs that spectrum. You heard Tom talk about the limited number of handy-talkie frequencies they have to operate on. That's a product of spectrum. The technology that's available for command and control, much of the technology that the military is now using. I think the Department of Homeland Security, and they're looking at new technology, has to look at that and see how those applications can be used in our country. We, in hindsight, looking from September 11th on, we have to think very differently. We can no longer think that acts of terrorism like this was simply something going to happen to other people and not us. I had lived through 93 in the pit of the World Trade Center. I had lived through 97 when we had a small group of bombers that had planned to blow up the subway. We now know that the technology is there. The military uses it. We have to think about how we can use that technology to better equip the first responders to ensure the quality of life and safety if another event like this happens. And what usually happens then as you plan for those catastrophic events, they help you in the smaller, the everyday emergencies. One of the things that enabled us to respond on the 9/11 and the days and weeks afterwards when we lost our entire infrastructure in Lower Manhattan was our experience with water main breaks and power outages and telephone disruptions. I mean, we have to look at IT disruptions, what they can do to us in everyday life, and there has to be more focus on that.